Welcome to CinePro, where we bring your favorite movies back to life with quick recaps, hidden details, and everything you missed. The movie begins with the ship Poseidon, which is a giant tourist ship consisting of several floors. Life inside it was full of laughter, games, and banter for all the passengers on board. Since tonight is New Year's Eve, we see people dancing and others singing, and everything is lively and cheerful. We then move to the control room, where we see the captain looking worried. He suspects something is wrong, and indeed, his suspicion turns out to be correct. Suddenly, without warning, a massive wave appears in front of the giant ship. The wave is so high that it towers over the ship. The entire crew tries to act quickly and steer the ship in the opposite direction. They alert everyone on the ship about the disaster, causing chaos on board as everyone runs in different directions to save themselves. Unfortunately, the wave is faster than them. The ship faces the wave on its side, and the wave completely engulfs the ship, flipping it upside down. A massive amount of water floods into the ship, drowning a large number of people. A huge explosion then occurs in the control room, killing the entire crew. Later, an officer arrives in the ship's main hall and begins talking to the passengers, informing them of their situation. He says, "We have two pieces of news, one good and one bad. Let's start with the bad news. A massive tsunami wave hit the ship and flipped it over, meaning we are all trapped here and cannot leave the ship. The good news is that the entire crew is dead." Are you sure that's the good news? Wait, before they died, they sent a distress signal to the rescue team, meaning a helicopter will be sent here soon to save us. That's why we need to stay calm and maintain our composure as much as possible. We then see a man named Dylan, who takes some items from a dead officer in front of him. A young boy approaches him and asks what he's doing. Dylan tells him he's planning to leave the ship. The boy asks how he plans to get out when the ship is upside down. Dylan responds that he knows a way to escape and needs to head up immediately. The boy quickly fetches his mother, who asks Dylan if what her son said is true. Dylan confirms, telling her he knows a way out of the ship. The boy's mother reiterates what the officer said about waiting for the rescue team. An older man overhears them and says he's an engineer with experience in ships and boats. He claims that a ship like this couldn't completely flip over, but likely tilted to its side, and it doesn't have much time before it sinks entirely. Robert, another character, asks Dylan if he can get to the disco. Dylan sarcastically responds, asking if Robert wants to dance or grab some drinks. Robert clarifies that he wants to go there because his daughter is trapped. He insists on accompanying Dylan, but Dylan refuses, saying he doesn't need anyone slowing him down. Robert asks Dylan to share the quickest escape route if he knows it. Realizing Dylan doesn't have a solid plan and is just trying his luck, Robert approaches a ship worker for directions and offers to pay him triple his salary to guide them out. The worker agrees, and Robert convinces Dylan that they need to cooperate to survive. Dylan reluctantly agrees, and the group follows his lead. Their plan is to head to the ship's stern and escape through the propulsion fans. As they leave the main hall, the doors shut behind them to prevent water from flooding in. The group moves forward, but they encounter a blocked path. They resort to the elevator, forcing its doors open and using a metal table as a makeshift bridge between the doors. Dylan tries to force open the elevator door on the other side, but fails. Fortunately, they notice the elevator door above them is open, and they help each other climb up. The last two to attempt the climb are the ship worker and the old engineer. Unfortunately, the table beneath them collapses. The old man clings to Dylan's hand, while the worker desperately grabs the old man's leg. The distance below is vast, and anyone who falls will surely die. Adding to their troubles, the elevator above them begins to slide down. If it falls, it will crush them both. Dylan struggles to hold their combined weight and urges the old man to let go of the worker to save himself. Reluctantly, the old man kicks the worker off, and he falls to his death. Dylan pulls the old man up just before the elevator crashes below, causing a massive explosion. They close the elevator door to shield themselves from the heat. The group then heads to the disco, where Robert finds his daughter alive and hugs her in relief. They also find 3 others, including his daughter's boyfriend, and decide to take them along. Now their group numbers 9. Determined to reach the ship's upper part quickly, they enter a large hall where they need to cross to the other side. However, Izrenia, the railing leading there, is broken. Dylan asks if anyone knows another way, and a girl from the disco admits she sneaked onto the ship without a ticket and had been hiding ever since. From the beginning, she knew everything about the ship and claimed there was no way she could have been hiding or escaping from the crew. She knew everything about the ship and said there was no other way to cross to the other side except the one in front of them. The group members had to risk their lives, carefully crossing the broken railing. 5 of them successfully made it across safely. Next, it was Robert's daughter's turn, but one of the selfish members of the group insisted on going first. He headed to the railing without even discussing it with them. Unfortunately, the ceiling above him collapsed and the engine fell on him. The selfish man fell, breaking the railing, and spilled oil from the engine everywhere. Due to the sparks flying around, the oil ignited, preventing anyone else from crossing to the other side. With the death of the selfish man, the group was reduced to 8 members. 5 had crossed to the other side, leaving Robert, his daughter, and another man behind. At that moment, the man tied a thick rope to a metal bar in front of him, grabbed the other end, and jumped into the burning water. Since oil is lighter than water, the fire didn't reach him underwater. He managed to safely reach the other side because of his naval background. He tied the rope to a pipe, allowing Robert and his daughter to slide across cross to the other side. Thus, all 8 members crossed safely and continued their journey. They moved to the vertical hall, where the people present were anxious and terrified because the glass was cracking under water pressure. The glass eventually shattered, drowning and killing everyone in the hall. The group heard the screams of the drowning people and felt deep sorrow for them. After some time, the rising water level forced the group to move quickly before they too were submerged. As they moved further into the ship, they discovered a dead end. The only way out was a small ventilation opening, so they entered one by one because of the narrow space. Robert went first, and Darlene was last. After walking a bit through the vent, water started seeping in, rising gradually. When Robert reached the end of the vent, he found a strong mesh blocking their exit. He tried to force it open, but couldn't because it was firmly secured. He discovered a bolt holding the mesh in place, but his fingers were too large to unscrew it through the mesh. He asked the young boy in the group to climb up quickly and unscrew it. The boy struggled with the stuck bolt, so Robert asked if anyone had a metal tool. The girl who had been hiding earlier handed him an iron cross. The boy used it to unscrew the bolt. Meanwhile, the water had risen dangerously high, almost drowning Darlene. At the last moment, the boy managed to remove the bolt, opening the mesh. The group escaped the vent. Now, they had only 2 floors left to climb to exit the ship. They entered a strange room with no doors, and the flooded vent they came through was no longer accessible. Darlene explained that the room was a water tank designed to balance the ship, and that it had only one opening, which wouldn't open until the tank was full. The only way to escape was to fill the tank with water. Robert's daughter panicked, asking what they would do if the opening didn't open. Darlene snapped at her, saying he had done all he could, and asked her to suggest another solution if she had one. Backed by Robert, the group began filling the tank. When it was full, they took a final deep breath and moved toward the opening. At first, it didn't open, leaving them in despair, but suddenly it opened due to the water pressure, and they were pushed out into the second tank. However, their ordeal wasn't over. They had to swim underwater a certain distance to exit the second tank and reach the other side. They all took a deep breath and dove in, swimming as fast as they could. Unfortunately, the hiding girl's dress got caught on a wire, and she ran out of air underwater. Although the old man saved her and brought her out, she didn't survive. The group was now reduced to 7 members. They reached the room they were supposed to exit, but found it flooded. Darlene looked despairingly at a specific spot in the room. When asked why, he explained that the flooded area was their intended exit, but the distance was too great to swim underwater. Upon hearing this, Robert tried to encourage the group, suggesting they might find another way if they climbed higher. Darlene replied that this was their only exit. Robert comforted him, thanking him for doing his best and saying they appreciated his efforts. He added that perhaps it was their destiny to die on the ship and that they couldn't escape their fate. Suddenly, a massive explosion occurred in the engine room, releasing a large amount of water from the ship. Fortunately, the water cleared their intended exit. They managed to reach the propulsion fans, but there was a major problem. The fans were still running and spinning in reverse, creating a strong air current against them. Anything they threw toward the fans to stop them was blown back in their faces. And by chance, Robert finds the map, which describes that the control room for the propulsion fans is beneath them, but at a distance of 150 feet. This is a very far distance for anyone to go back and forth, meaning whoever goes down to stop the fans will die down there and won't return. Robert sacrifices himself and says he will go down. At that moment, his daughter's boyfriend objects and tells him, "I'll go down. You stay here because your daughter needs you." They argue back and forth over who should go down, wasting precious time arguing. After a long debate, Robert descends and sacrifices himself to save the rest of the group. Meanwhile, during the discussion and argument, someone was missing because he was searching for the little boy and his mother, as the water had risen above the child's height and drowned him. Thankfully, Robert finds the child and rescues him. He then returns to the group and realizes that the water level is continuing to rise. He says they must stop the fans before the water rises any further. We then shift to Robert, who finally manages to reach the control room. Unfortunately, he finds that the fan shutdown button is broken, meaning he went down and sacrificed himself for nothing. Underwater, he begins to experience convulsions due to lack of oxygen. But at the last moment, he notices a button to reverse the fan direction. He presses it quickly with his last breath and then dies. A while later, Dalen notices that the fans haven't stopped and assumes they're all doomed. He starts shouting, "Why haven't they stopped?" At the same time, Robert's daughter's boyfriend notices that the airflow has reversed direction, meaning the fans have reversed. Now they can throw anything at the fans without it coming back toward them. Dalen quickly grabs a large cylinder and throws it at the fans. A massive explosion occurs due to the cylinder, and the fans finally stop. They all escape from the ship and jump into the water. Afterward, they find a small lifeboat that had fallen from the ship into the sea. They all climb into it, but of course, bad luck follows them. Even though they escape the ship starts tipping over toward them. They all grab the oars and paddle with all their strength to escape before the ship collapses on them. Thankfully, they succeed in escaping with their lives. In the final scene, we see Dalen lighting a rescue flare into the sky so the rescue team can spot them and locate their position. After some time, the rescue team arrives in a helicopter and saves them. And this brings us to the end of our movie. If you enjoyed the film, don't forget to subscribe so you can follow all the upcoming great movies. Thank you.